Hey, it's Mike Cambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting VIP interview where I interview some of the most successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in the industry to help you learn and grow. Today, I'm joined by Terry. Many of you know Sean. He's a real estate investor, author, mentor, coach via his Flip2Freedom program. He has a lot of stuff going on. He's a fellow podcaster. We're going to learn a lot more about Sean today. But we're also going to discuss how to scale your real estate business. For those of you that know Sean or listen to me at all, we talk often about how to turn your business from a hobby into a real business. And yet all of us, Sean included, started with just one house. But taking your business from a hobby to a thriving business that gives us all those things that we want out of real estate investing is a whole different story. So we're going to talk about that today. Before we get started, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Sean, thanks for being on the show.
How's it going?
Good,
Mike,
good. Glad you're here. I've had a number of other leading podcasters in our space. I think you're probably number one in the real estate space, though, right?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if I'm number one because I'm a big dork. So why would people listen to me? But I just kind of started in April 2010. Just started talking to a mic, and actually my first podcast, because I didn't have an office at the time, was in my car. Because that was the only quiet place, because I have two loud kids, two crazy dogs, and a wife at home. So I was actually in my Range Rover at the time.
Yeah. Well, that was cutting edge technology back then. Was
cutting edge, man.
Yeah.
Yep. And I listen back to those, and I just cringe on the audio quality. It's just terrible.
You know what's funny now is we don't talk about this a whole lot, but I mean, if people saw my setup here, I mean, I have a $80 Logitech cam. I have a Mac. I do have a fancy microphone. But you could do so much in a free Skype account. I mean, there's so much you can do with a few $100 these days. It's crazy.
Yeah, just have an idea. You start talking. I mean, I had a little condenser mic, and it plugged into one of those audio recorders, and I was in my car, and I was just, going off.
Yeah.
My intent was to deliver content that people could use, they could take back in their business and make money.
Yeah,
so.
And you've done a great job of teaching other people that. Before we kind of get started about the topic of the day, why don't you, for those that don't know you or maybe don't know you real well yet, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in real estate investing, and then obviously you led up to helping lots of other people too. But take it from the top.
Well, interestingly, I was 33 years old. I had a brand new baby daughter, and I found myself in a position that I completely hated. I was in a job that I hated, the boss that I didn't like. There was all this whole political game. And of just uncertainty. So I was in a situation where I was very dissatisfied. I was 33, and I knew, and it's interesting because there's a point in your life when you know that you want to do more. There's, you felt inspired to do something more, but then you don't know what to do, right? So you haven't really found your purpose yet of what you want to accomplish, what you want to do, but you want to do it and you're striving to do it, but you just don't know what to do. So I found myself in that state, and I was working in a company. I had to go on a sales call on a Saturday afternoon, and prior to that, my wife, because I was talking about what I could do with my life, and she goes, "Well, you should be a real estate agent." And I was like, "Oh, okay, why not?" So I read this book on being a real estate agent, and they said, "Oh, you have to go out and do listings and this, that, and the other." And it didn't resonate with me about being a realtor. So I happened to go on this appointment a Saturday afternoon, and Saturdays were typically the days I spend with my family, or doing honey to-do lists. But I was at the time where I was living month to month, and everything sucked. sucked financially. So obviously I went on the appointment to provide for my family. And I was driving down the freeway. I was flipping through the radio stations, and I heard this guy talk about how you could flip houses with no cash, no credit, have no experience, and you could make a bunch of money. And I'm originally from New England, right? So my skepticism came across me.
Your bullshit monitor was going off. Is that?
I was like, it was this red flag all the way.
Yeah.
It's like, this guy's kidding me. Because, it's amazing because, you tend to become skeptical, or your mind shuts down and says no if you don't know something, right? So I didn't know what I didn't know, and this guy was talking about how you could flip houses. He had people on there that made $5,000 to $20,000 flipping properties in a matter of days and weeks,
right? And
they could do this with no cash or no credit. And I was like, I was laughing to myself. I was like, this guy's a joke.
Yeah.
You can't do that in real estate. What do you think? What a scam. That's what I thought, right? So I flipped the channel. I was looking for some sort of sports station I could listen to, right? And I was driving down the freeway, and I felt a nudge from, now I know it was God's intervention. He's basically slapping me upside the head. He said, turn the channel back. So I did.
Yeah.
And I continued to listen to what he said. And he talked about the concept of wholesaling, which all your listeners know, Mike, that, I'm sure they're well versed in wholesaling, but I never knew wholesaling existed.
Yeah, I
never knew you could contract a property for X and then turn around and sell that contract to an end buyer and have end buyer fund the whole thing and be able to make a profit. So I actually bought his course. I devoured it over a weekend. The course was antiquated, and it taught to go knock on pre-foreclosure doors.
Yeah.
So I took the information and I started knocking on pre-foreclosure doors, which I don't really recommend to anybody because you have to have, like a rhinoceros, you got to have thick skin.
Yeah, for sure.
To go knock on doors. But
yeah,
that was my introduction, and I just started. Get a list, knock on doors, and eventually after 3 weeks, I got my first deal. I made $11,008, and that check changed my life.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So all the people who are listening, if you're brand new and you've never made a check before, just do whatever you got to do to make the first check. Because once you get that first check, everyone that says you're crazy, everyone that says you're nuts, everyone that says you're, it's whatever, it's a scam, whatever, then that check will shut them up.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There were people that when we started that said, why would people sell, why would they buy houses from you? Or they're like, why would they sell it for a discount and all these things? And, we started to question ourselves, like, I think it'll work. I don't know. So, but and then of course those people now like, well, how can I get involved in this? The same people that.
As soon as you prove it. Yeah, I went to my father-in-law, and he's a very successful businessman and stuff like that, and bought and sold tons of properties, from his own personal residence and stuff. And I said, okay, I was on our back patio, and I said, hey, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna get these houses. They're $100,000 for $50,000. I'm going to tie them up on a contract, and then I'm going to sell them before I have to buy them. Right? Yeah. That's what I said. And he's like, you can't do that. Yeah. That sounds illegal. But, don't take my word for it. Go talk to this realtor. So I go talk to the realtor, that he recommended. And he's like, you'll never be able to find those deals because all the professionals find those first. Right. So typically, I used to be a Marine, right? So I got out of high school in the Marine Corps. And one thing I learned in the Marine Corps is, tell me you can't do it. Tell me that I can't do it, and I'll do it 10 times over to prove you wrong. Because obstacles are just obstacles. They're just, there's something in the way. But as a Marine, you learn to go over it, to go around the obstacle, go under it, or my favorite, just blow it up.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so somewhere along the way there that you and I both said, hey, this is great, but it's a hustle for me to do everything and to really scale this thing up. And how do I turn this from using all my own efforts into finding ways to kind of truly build a business out of it? And so let's start talking about that a little bit. Talk about, how.
So interestingly enough, what happens, I never went to college, right? So I joined the Marine Corps, did my whole thing, and so I never went to college, and I never took really a business class on how to run a business. So I didn't have that experience or knowledge or know-how how to build or run a business, right? Yeah. So I just went at it of what I know. And as a type A personality type, and as a almost perfectionists, want to get it done. It was very difficult for me to even think about hiring people at any point. So, the beginning, and for the first handful of years, I would do everything myself. So basically, I would be pretty much every seat. So I would be the marketing person. I'd go send out, the marketing, and whether it be yellow letters, postcards, whatever it might be. I'd take the phone calls, right? Yep. I'd sort through the leads. I didn't have a CRM at the time like we do now, so I'd sort through the different leads, and then I'd turn around and I, call them. Then I go on appointments with the sellers. I go get the contracts. I pull all the comps. And then, if I got a contract, I'd have to send the paperwork to go open up escrow. And then I'd have to make sure I had to do transaction coordination to get the seller to get all the documents over to the title company. And then I had to now market the property, right? So then I had to put out the signs. I had to put out the marketing and bandit signs, put it on Craigslist, put all that information together. Then I had to take calls, right, from all the buyers. So now I'm taking all the calls from the buyers, to try to, find it. Then I had to go show the property to the buyers. Then I had to get it in a contract. Then I had to send it over to title company. And I'm doing all of this. And then now you get to the end and you close a deal and you go, whew, I did it. I made, $5,000, $10,000, $13,000. And guess where you're at now? Back to the starting point. So I got to do marketing now. Yeah. So then you send out marketing and then you go through the whole process. And a lot of wholesalers, what happens is they do that. They go through the check, and they go through that process, and they go, okay, how do I go from doing, and maybe they do it once a month, maybe they do it twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, but how do you go from doing 2 or 3 or 4 deals a month to scaling it to an operation that's doing 15, 20 deals a month in a single market, and then scaling it to a national market and doing it all over across the country? So I came
and also how do you get some of your life back too?
Yeah, and then how do you get joy? Because when you're doing that, guess what? You're taking calls on Sunday. Right. If a buyer wants to go see a house, because real estate is a 24/7 deal. Right. It's not like it's not a hump at 9 to 5. I'm going to shut the phone off. Right. Forget about it. This is. First off, you have the mentality. I looked at real estate as a way to get out of the financial. The month to month, I wanted to get rich. Yep. I didn't get in real estate to just, make a living and make $100,000 a year. I got in real estate to make a fortune. So I took that mentality of making a fortune. I was like, it's funny, interesting. I saw an Instagram thing, and it said, most billionaires work 80 hours a week. You know what I mean? And I'm far from being a billionaire, but if they're working 80 hours a week, I can sure work 60. You know what I mean? But now there's ways to systemize things to be able to allow you to have, the free time to be able to do that. So,
So let's talk about some of the steps. We can even just talk about what you did, because it's a common, all those tasks you do, from lead generation to taking buy calls, taking calls from buyers and sellers, going on appointments. You start to find those things, probably starting with the things that take up the most time or that you like the least, and start to find ways to kind of systematize those. So let's talk about some just general steps on, I guess where you went from there, or what you recommend.
Actually, it's interesting because, change happens when, a catastrophe happens or a mental breakdown happens, right? Yeah. That's when typically change happens. Now, hopefully you can listen to this. You don't have to go through a mental breakdown or some sort of crisis before you change. But what happened to me was, interestingly enough, is that I was pretty much a one-man show. I had a partner at the time that did more of the books and the financing, and I basically, built the thing, generated the leads and stuff like that. Yeah. So in early 2003, I got started wholesaling. In my first year, I think I made like $134,000 solely on my own hustling. 2004, that's when I went in business with my partner, and then we went out and at the time, we built a rental portfolio of about 120 properties, $36 million worth of properties between 2004 and early 2005. Well, in Phoenix, market just went bananas because the inventory levels shot down to like 5,000 units. So we got approached from a California group that wanted to buy all of our properties. So we literally unloaded all of our properties from May to November of 2005, all 120 properties, all $36 million worth. And it was just insane.
Yeah.
So then during the 2000, and I got big for my britches at the time. You'd think, holy cow, I made millions of dollars selling real estate. This is, incredible. So then I started getting into other different projects. I got into land projects. I got into, huge apartment complex projects and stuff like that, which was, bad timing because the market was in the process of crashing.
Yep.
So I found myself back in it was 2009 where I was like, listen, all my money, I had millions and millions of dollars tied up in land projects. So I was completely illiquid. And I was in a point where I had to generate cash flow. So at the time, my partner and I decided to part ways. And I started basically back in 2009 from scratch, where I had to, basically start from building a wholesaling business.
Yep.
So again, I did everything for myself. Back in 2009, I was writing handwritten yellow letters from my kitchen table at home, to generate leads coming in. So I took it from that standpoint, and I did everything myself because I was, wanted to be cheap or cost effective and try to, just do everything. So I literally work from, I wake up at, 5:30, 6 o'clock and work till during the day, my family would go to bed, and then I would, from 9 and 10 o'clock when they go to bed till 2 o'clock in the morning, I would be hustling, working, doing stuff. And then I found myself where I was actually at a Collective Genius meeting. I had an opportunity to meet, Jason Medley over at the Collective Genius there. Yep. And at this time I was doing well. I pulled myself. I was cranking it. I was doing deals, but I was doing everything myself. So I stood at the meeting there, and at the Collective Genius, you kind of stand up and you tell your story, where you are and what your situation is. And in that meeting, I stood up and said, listen, I'm at wit's end. I'm working 24/7. I was at the breaking point, basically the tipping point. What the heck should I do? And Jason, he said, well, why don't you hire somebody? And I'm like, what? It never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Hire somebody? What are you, nuts? I'm not gonna. And I was like, well, and he taught me the process and this, that, and the other hire. So I was like, okay. So I had my first hire, and that right there was the crisis, the breaking point, because I was disconnecting my family. I was constantly going. My brain was always future thinking. I was, and then that's when I, hired my first person. And then things started to shift, and then I kind of understood the process of what that can do for your business when it comes to leverage. And leverage is incredibly important because you can only do so much. If you're working, you make money. If you're marketing, you're talking to sellers, you make money. If you're selling properties, you're making money. But if you're not selling properties, if you're not talking to sellers, if you're not doing that, guess what? There's no income generated if you're not doing anything. So then you have this massive guilty feeling. So I'd be at the park with my daughter, and I'd be guilty checking my phone or doing whatever, to see if I'm missing anything, because I'd have this guilty feeling because I'm not working, because I'm, to produce income.
Right.
So then when I started hiring, I was like, holy cow, strategically hiring. I was like, wow, I can be at the park with my daughter and I can still generate revenue. And once I understood that concept, that was like a tipping point for me. Then everything completely changed.
Yep.
So.
Yep. No, I understand that feeling for sure. And what's actually been interesting for me specifically is my wife works in our business too. So we never leave work. We're talking about work, laying in bed at night. Did you remember to do that? And there've been those moments where, not necessarily hitting a breaking point, but I think everybody gets to a point to where they know, this works, but this is not sustainable. And what do I have to do to take it to the next level and make my life easier? Right.
So I think that was the component of hiring somebody, but then it goes to hiring, right? And then there's running a business,
right?
So and then strategically scaling it from one person to many, but then being able to manage that growth process to be able to make it happen.
Yeah. So for folks that are listening to this that are they haven't
in that state.
What's that?
that are in that state right now.
Yeah, that maybe haven't hit that breaking point yet. That hiring, that they're afraid to hire people. A lot of people are naturally conservative, right? Which is a good. It's good and bad. I mean, it depends on the market. But there's a lot of people that their overhead got way too heavy, and then they were in trouble when there's a downturn because you can't cut your costs fast enough. But for folks that really are getting into this with the intention of scaling it and maybe haven't hit that wall yet, how do you kind of advise them on where to start layering in? Where's your first hire, and what are some of the things that?
Actually, if you back up from the hiring perspective, it all goes to mentality, right? And it's amazing, how your vision will determine hire, right? It will determine where you want to go. Yeah. So first off, the question that needs to be asked for someone says, listen, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And it's not, it's not saying, okay, where do you see yourself in 10 years? It's like, where do you see your revenue? Where do you see your business? Where do you see how much time you're going to have off to spend your time with your family and doing things? Yep. What is your, your marketing? What's your story going to be? So it's almost like creating your vision of where you want to be in 10 years and then reverse engineering that thing. So what I did in my business at the time is I said, okay, where do I want to be in 10 years? And it was like an audacious goal of, and I have multiple different companies, but it was like, where do I want to be with this particular business in 10 years? And then what I did is said, okay, well, now I want to back it out to a 3-year goal, right? Of where do I see myself, the revenue, the type of marketing we're doing, the type of leads we're generating, the type of monthly deals we're doing, and type of deal size we're doing. What does that look like in 3 years? Then I backed it up to a 1 year, right? And then I backed it up to a quarterly. Then I backed it up to a monthly. Yeah. So if you have a 10-year goal and you know exactly where you're going to go on a 10-year vision, then you can say, well, who do I have to have in place 10 years from now to accomplish this goal? Who do I have to have in place 3 years from now? Well, my organization, I have me, and I'm more the visionary. I'm more the implementer. And then I have a COO, Chief Operating Officer, and under the COO, I have I have an outside sales rep. Then I have more of like an inside sales rep. She manages all the CRM and the phones and stuff like that. Yeah. And then I have a chief financial officer that manages all the costs and the marketing. Then I have a marketing rep, and I have a transaction coordinator and a dispositions. So if this is what you're building, right, then you can start defining each seat, right? And then once you define the seats, then you can start backfilling those seats. Now, you might have some people that are in multiple different seats. Right. You might have my CEO is in a marketing seat and he's in the disposition seat. But eventually we're going to be hiring a new marketing person to come on to take that role over as his cup flows over with activities. Yeah. So now if you have this this vision of the finished house, I guess you could say, then what you can do is you can start backfilling these different positions of the people, and it's going to start your name as a brand new just starting this is going to be in every single seat. Right. But then as you grow, you're going to say, okay, listen, I can send and it's difficult to say, okay, I'm now going to take someone on. I'm going to take their livelihood on, and I'm going to hire someone, but I'm going to have them fill a specific seat. They're going to have a specific role. They're going to have a specific job, and most importantly, they're going to report on a specific number. So I do a meeting every single Monday. We'll actually do an annual meeting, which in an annual meeting, it's basically a 2-day meeting, and we basically figure out exactly where we want to be in a 12-month period, exactly what our quarterly goals are, and then we can break it down on a monthly goal down to a weekly. So every single Monday we do a weekly meeting at Monday morning at 9:30, and it's for 90 minutes, and basically everybody reports on specific numbers that I don't know if I have it right here, but reports on specific numbers. So my COO reports on, the pipeline revenue that we have, what our closed revenue was for the previous week, what our, future closed revenue is for the upcoming week. So I know exactly how much revenue is going to close for the week and what our pipeline looks like. Then each person reports on specific numbers that all equate to our bottom line goals. Yep. And if you help hold people accountable based upon goals and numbers and stuff like that, then it's amazing what you track exponentially grows.
Yeah. Hey, would you take a second, Sean, and just talk about how you find the right people, because I think a lot of real estate investors, they tend to be afraid that other people that are on their team might find out. If they really find out how much money you're making, then they're gonna feel bad or whatever. But I mean, there's a right and a wrong way to do that. I mean, of course, the people that are worried about that are have the people working for them that don't see the down times and all the expense side of it. They just see, hey, you just made 20 grand on a wholesale deal or whatever. It's like, but yeah, we lost like 30 grand last month. But just generally talk about how to find people that you can open up and share those numbers with, that aren't always wondering, well, I'm the one who's doing all the work here. Why is he making all the money, for example?
Well, specifically, we have a hiring system that works really, really well. And basically the hiring system is we do an ad, we put it on ZipRecruiter, put it on Craigslist. And it's very detailed of exactly what we expect, who we're looking for, the job requirements, what the type of person will look like. And then part of it is basically a 3-step interview where they're directed to go through a 7-step survey. And that 7-step survey will ask them specific questions about their how many. Well, one question would be, how many books do you read? What was the last 5 books that you read? And if you have ones like 50 Shades of Grey, you know what I mean? Well, maybe do I really want to hire this person, right? But if it's like, Brian Tracy on closing techniques, well, there you go. It could be different.
Yeah.
So it's different questions about them. And then at the end of that, it prompts them that they have to record a 3 to 5 minute video telling us why they believe they're the absolute best candidate for the position. Okay. So they go through this process, and when they do go through that process, the amazing thing happens is that you'll get on the last hire, we got 250 applicants, 250 people that filled out surveys, and we got basically 10 videos. My wife's a really good judge of character, so I had her look at all 10 videos. We basically selected 3 that we thought were the best, and out of those 3, one person lived way on the other side of town, didn't want to commute, so it left us 2. I interviewed 2, and the biggest problem was trying to pick which one, because they were both outstanding.
Yeah.
So if you have a clear defined role of what you want with a person, then you'll have someone be able to fill that. Now, your question specifically was about how do you find someone about revenue and this. Well,
let's tweak it a little bit. Like specifically somebody, because I think guys like you and I tend to be attracted to people that are kind of entrepreneurial, but
right.
You don't want them to be so entrepreneurial that they're constantly thinking about how they're going to take the best of your business and go do it themselves.
Well, interestingly, it's almost like you have to, you look at someone's history of what the jobs that they've had before. I mean, have they in their resume? Have they tried to start 4 or 5 companies and then now they've only had 2 jobs in the past? Yeah. Well, they have an entrepreneurial spirit, but failed. So they might see this and go, this is the one. But if they had a history of where they've been working for the past, 10, 15 years and it's all been an employment situation, the chances of them breaking against that current is pretty slim to none. Sure. So what I try to do is find someone with a history that has a good standing history as an employee, but maybe just hasn't found the right company, instead of someone that has multiple startups that they tried to do and failed. Now they're looking for a job.
Right.
So and also having the understanding is that most people aren't like us. They're not. Most people don't have the ability to write a check for $40,000, $50,000 for marketing for a month and then hope that you're going to go out and get deals, whether it be $50,000, whether it be $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000 or $5,000. A lot of people don't have the wherewithal to do that consistently on a monthly basis. Right. So there's that fear of doing it. So it could happen, right? They could want to say, I'm going to try to take the business and go do it elsewhere. But the track record shows in a lot of the people that they won't. Yeah. They're better employees and they'd rather have a secure income and rather have benefits and all that type of stuff than take risks.
Yeah. You can usually find out too. I asked somebody recently that was asking for more money. I said, do you want more variable compensation? Like, do you want me to incentivize you to help us make more money, or do you want something in your base? And they're like, in my base. I was like, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, and see, for guys like us, I'd say, listen, forget the base, give me a bigger commission, and I'm going to make more money than you do.
Yeah.
That would be my response to a question like that.
Right.
Where someone else's would be like, well, I want more base because I'm not confident myself to go out and produce more results.
Right. Awesome. Well, hey, this has been great advice. Any kind of final words of wisdom for folks that are looking to scale their business up from a hobby or from doing a deal here and there to taking it to the next level?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the biggest thing is that, for someone that if you're doing 2 or 3 deals a month, you're doing all the work and you're doing everything. Understanding that to go from 2 deals a month to 20 deals a month, to go from maybe 200,000 or 300,000 a year to millions and millions and millions of dollars a year, the gap, right? There's a gap between the 2 different points. That gap is the amount of marketing you do. Okay, so we do Google AdWords like crazy. We're in the yellow pages. We do Valpaks. We're on TV. We're on radio. We're on the local papers and stuff like that. We're all over the place. And those are just like lines in the ocean that we're just putting a line out. We're hoping to catch fish.
Yeah.
What do we control in this business? We control direct mail. The direct mail is the cornerstone for your business, and the more direct mail you do, the more targeted direct mail, the more direct mail you do, period, is what is going to increase that lead number on a per weekly basis. And if you increase your leads on a weekly basis and you can handle those leads, you can talk to those leads and you can monetize those leads to the absolute best ability, then you can go out and generate the revenue. But what's going to happen is, you can start small and you can scale it, but understanding that, guess what? I've got to drop. I mean, my 10-year goal is to drop 25 million mailers annually in my business. So 25 million mailers. Wow. And right now I'm sending 120,000. Yeah. So between now and then, I've got to scale my business up where I'm sending 25 million mailers a year, right, to generate X amount of leads to produce X amount of revenue. Yeah. So that's where I'm going for my gap. So if your gap and you're sending 3,000 mailers in a month, well, and you want to go, we'll start sending, 30,000, start sending 50,000, start sending 100,000. But then being able to scale and monetize those leads correctly is the key component.
Yep. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Had a great time, Mike.
Yeah.
An absolute pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, and we'll be talking again soon, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, we'll see you, buddy.
See ya.
Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.